You know, INEC has this countdown where it shows you just how many days, up to the minute and hours we have up until the presidential election. And at this moment, we have exactly 46 days and, 25 minutes. Yes, it's as accurate as that to the 2023 presidential election. Of course, the governorship and others happens some weeks after. And we're focusing on that. This is crunch time. This is a critical period for that election where a lot of people have to decide on which candidate they're voting for. The electoral umpire talks about election management, security agencies, lots of components coming together so you can understand why there's a lot of activity around that. And this morning, as you've seen, we're being joined right here in our Lagos studio by the presidential candidate of AAC, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. He's also the publisher of Sahara Reporters. Good morning and thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you for bringing me.
Lots of issues. Oh, I know. I wish you the same. Lots of issues to raise,
Yes.
really. And I'll start from the big one, election management.
Yes.
Just yesterday, it would seem INEC is raising this alarm about security and how it will affect the coming elections. I mean, we'll come into your own manifesto and all of that, but we need to speak to this one. We have 46 days to the election. So tell us, do you share those fears that INEC has regarding security and how it might affect the election up until the point that it might say postponement? Or what? Cancellation?
Well, we had a meeting as party leaders with security agencies in the country at the IG's office a few weeks ago, and we did raise this issue, but they, as usual, downplayed it. What has happened to Nigeria over these years is that Nigeria has failed successively in the security area and in other areas too, but mostly in terms of security. And what we found out is that a lot of non-state actors are in control of territory in Nigeria. And we've been in denial about that, and that is why INEC is now coming out openly to say, well, these elections are threatened. That's number one. The second aspect of it is how they also deactivate public interest in elections. You know, when there's always a secret agenda in every election cycle. We'll be hearing stories about plans to have interim government by some persons, very influential members of society. And now INEC is coming out to say, well, elections may not hold as planned, or they might be cancelled because they have security. We've always known that we have security issues, but to have pushed Nigerians to a point where everybody is now ready for elections and you're now a few days, you know, this could be called days to the election, saying, we might get the election postponed or cancelled. It's basically to create confusion and make people lose interest in the election itself.
You know, this is not the first time we've had some sort of postponement.
I was going to say that.
We saw that during the Jonathan period, and it was about security as well.
Yes.
Give us time. Let us try to sort the security issues. But what is maybe different this time around is just some days ago, and I'm sure you heard that the Borno State governor actually said that the state is 90% safe for elections. And for a lot of people, that was a bright spot. 90%, if you judge, that's excellent, really, and that's a pass mark. So when you weigh that against this recent announcement by INEC, or at least this pronouncement, do you still think it worth something for the Borno State governor to say that?
I have my own theory. There's always a conspiracy against democracy in this country. And my feeling, apart from what is obvious to everybody in terms of security, is that they have other plans. I mean the ruling class and their friends who may not directly be in office, but they always have a different plan. When Jonathan postponed the election during his time, he had a different agenda. You know, there were security reports that he couldn't win the election or he wouldn't win the election. So they sent Dasuki to the UK, Chatham House, to announce the postponement, and that was done. During the 2019 election as well, for some reasons, I think they found out, they had to tidy up some of their acts. They postponed the election. The presidential election in Nigeria has always been postponed for some unknown reason. But this time around, I don't see any reason why, after all the hoopla about beavers, the preparedness of INEC, all the documents being in place, we're hearing about postponement. 46 days to election. It shows that there's something beneath that has not been told to the public and the public is not saying. But for someone who has been a direct observer of how these guys manipulate the public during election cycles, I know there's more to this than meet the eyes.
Mr. Sowore, I imagine that you must feel passionate, must be passionate about security, having lost a brother,
Yes.
to attacks, by quote-unquote non-state actors.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, we heard that there was a clash between Yoruba nation agitators and, security agents. Another presidential candidate is acknowledging, that very real threat of non-state actors and is proposing carrot and sticks approach. I wonder what your, solution would be if you were elected president.
No, the solutions are not going to just be carrot and stick. It's to look at which part of Nigeria has what security issue, because there's no one-size-fits-all solution to this. Yeah, you look at Nigeria regionally, you look at the South-South, there is a problem of militancy. That's why we can't sell more than 1 million barrels of crude on a daily basis. It's real, it's latent, it's with us. You look at the Southeast, there's a problem of agitation for nationhood. You look at the Northwest, there's banditry, the Northeast, there's terrorism. And above all, there is also governmental terrorism on its own. Like, this idea of killing people who are engaging in peaceful protest. It's also a threat to security, because imagine if all the Yoruba nation agitators start another agitation today now. The Southwest is out of the picture for, decent or peaceful elections. So you wonder why the Nigerian state goes out to poke the barrel, the bear, in the face at a time that is crucial and sensitive. Like, that's why I keep talking about the fact that there's a conspiracy theory behind the need, behind all these activities that you hear from. But again, you ask me directly, what would I do? As president of Nigeria, so look at all these areas and bring out what would fit their own peculiar security challenge. For the Southeast, it will be dialogue. For the bandits, it will be stick. For the militants, it will be further dialogue and how to fix the environment and the issues that is making this militancy come together. You cannot, for instance, cede the security of Nigeria's waters to an individual expect for you to say that you are a nation. Nobody takes us serious when they wake up one day and say, oh, we just gave a contract to a guy to take care of territorial waters. There's no country in the world that does that. You have just said to the world, I don't have a navy. Yes. You're saying to the world, when people get kidnapped frequently from schools, from their workplace, that you don't have a police. So you have to set up all these security issues. But most importantly, this is needed, and we must keep saying it. Without solving the socio-economic problems of our people, we can't get the kind of security that we need.
But pardon me to ask, why the selective approach for the different types of...
Because
they have done the same damage to the Nigerian state.
No. The damage done by the Nigerian state to its citizen is what we are reaping from. See, if you had done justice to the Southeast after the Civil War, nobody will be agitating for Biafra. You understand? If there's been social economic justice across Nigeria in the way that it should be, there are not two rich people and two poor people. And you have 133 million people who are in multidimensional poverty, and then 5 people who are in multidimensional wealth. Then you have dislocations in society, and in addressing them, you must apply leadership. So, for instance, it has been said, and I studied this while I was in school, as far back as 2003, that any kind of terrorism that lasts more than 10 years, or conflict, internal conflict, requires just more than shooting at people. You have to look at it fundamentally, see who you can talk to, who can be rehabilitated, and who needs to be taken out completely.
Well, lots of issues to raise, and maybe we should just get into some other ones now. About the crude oil production, we've since crossed that 1 million mark, by the way. We're now at 1.235 as of December. These are official figures. And you just quoted an official figure, that 133 million people out of poverty. So at least we have that to refer to. We were struggling to get to 1 million before that. But a lot of people seeing you in Lagos will wonder, why are you in Lagos? Are you campaigning this time around, since we have seen a different approach? So let's get into your own ambition, your bid. Is it a campaign you're here for in Lagos? What exactly is going on?
Over time, since 2019, somehow our political party and movement has led the transformation and innovative style of campaigning. In 2019, I wasn't doing the regular kind of campaigning that politicians were doing, because I hate the echo chamber style of campaigning. You pack people in the stadium, having paid them, and then you bring in comedians, musicians, and when it's time for the presidential candidate to speak, he barely says anything, and then he moves on. Even the media can't come out of any campaign today and say, this is what I heard from the presidential candidate. So we started talking directly with the people. And don't forget that a campaign that was done in 1963, where you put people in a stadium, is not the same in 2023, because there are multidimensional ways of campaigning. You can use the internet, you can reach people in their houses now than you could before. You can go to professional organizations and have town hall meetings with them. Not the kind of town hall meetings that these other candidates do. So we decided that having gone through all these transformational, technologically driven ways of talking to people, you can reach more people by attending an icon event, and you can hear back from them than putting people in a stadium, paying them 5,000 naira. Same people, after you leave, will change their T-shirts and go for the other party the next day because of poverty, weaponized poverty. People don't even have political ideologies or parties anymore. They just do whatever can make them get by on a daily basis. So we're not doing those kind of denigrating type of rallies. Of course, we do some of those. So what we decided to do is to have what we call people assemblies. We've been in Kano, I've been in Cross River State, Calabar, I've been in Port Harcourt. And of course, you know, because we're not deep pockets, the media don't cover us the way, you know, the other big pockets get covered. When I say media, I don't have money to pay for a live coverage, and it's not a crime that people do live coverages. But I can also reach people on Twitter, on Facebook. I can reach them on Instagram, Snapchat. Some of these platforms are not known by the mainstream politicians, but it reaches a lot more people. So that's why I'm in Lagos. And, you know, I haven't been in Lagos for a long time, by the way. I was restricted to Abuja for 3 years.
But you know, you require the popularity and, you know, the structure, as what is referred to in Nigerian parlance, you know, to get ahead in the elections. So what are you relying on? Is it on your popularity from your activism?
No, I'm relying on the people. I think when it comes to popularity, there's a difference between popularity and infamy. You know, a lot of the political people you're talking about, they're not popular. They're infamous, but of course, they are known by the people because of their infamous nature. We are bringing ideas to bear on the political process, and I'm proud to say this, that for someone like me who hasn't been in political position, having acquired illegal wealth, that I can bring ideas, I can challenge the status quo up to this point, is something that anybody who wants to do this in the future can be proud of. And I'm sure that ideas would win one day in this country. Because the other people are not talking about anything. They're just throwing numbers and figures and all these you know, superficial rallies. And I'm very sure they're superficial to confuse people. And I know a lot of our people are not confused by those things.
Let's step back a bit,
yes.
Really. And this is about you now. This is more personal. And I'd like you to speak to this for a lot of people who see you. And maybe they're trying to place you because they think maybe you're an enigma of sorts. I mean, they saw you in videos behind MKO. You've since spoken about that one. You lived in the U.S. for, what, 2 decades? 20 years? Yes. You joined politics. You came back to Nigeria, joined politics, publisher of Sahara, reporters, and all of that. And they still look at you and try to place you. Is he the kind of person Nigeria needs? Is he a politician? Is he an activist? Some even describe you as an SUG president. I'm sure you've seen that on social media and all of that. What drives you? And I'd like you to speak to that. What exactly drives you?
Well, you know, let me put it in a number of ways. I'm the kind of person that I've, in my entire life, built everything from the scratch. You know, I grew up in a village in Ondo State known as Kiribo. Didn't have, till today hasn't had electricity, no post offices. You know, I heard about universities from other people, never read about them. I used to go pick sketch newspaper and Tribune and read on my own when my father would bring them in. Having been wrapped with bread, you know, having wrapped it with, you know, wrapped bread.
It must be still.
Yes. So, and I left. I came to the University of Lagos. When I arrived at the University of Lagos, if you didn't have nice shoes, nice clothes, you didn't have a car, nobody reckoned with you. Then I became president of the student union at the age of 21. You're talking about MKO Abiola. We kind of started the Channels TV station with that struggle in 1992. I didn't say like we started it. But John Momo personally used to follow the cameraman around, and that's how he met me with MK Abiola.
As a true reporter that he is.
Yes. So I never knew that that video even existed until 2018 when I woke up one day and somebody said, I saw you behind Abiola. I thought it was only a photograph. And the guy that took the picture at Vanguard newspaper died before I could lay my hand on it, because I knew it happened. So I've always built everything from the scratch. People can place where I stand. You know, when I did Sahara reporters, I built it from the scratch. When I wanted to contest in 2018, I built a political party from the scratch. So I'm not that lucky to have been born with a silver spoon or any kind of spoon in my mouth. So that's why sometimes people find it difficult. The SUG connotation that they give to my name, I think I see it as, you know, a kind of blessing, because for me to have been an SUG leader when I was 21 years old, and it's still respected today, that means I did something when I was young with my life. But part of it is also what we call psych ops in elections. You know, psychological operation. You make people feel degraded to the point that they don't value themselves, and that's what they've done to an average Nigerian youth.
So all of the mudslingings, you're not distracted.
It's part of election.
So by the way, when you talk about your party, you've
people
since
who
stepped
say
down
I'm
as a
SUG,
chairman.
why are they afraid to debate me on TV?
Right. So you've since stepped down as a chairman of the AAC. Am I correct?
No, I stepped down to run as a primary. After the primaries, we'll have a special. After this election, we'll have a special convention to elect a chairman, and I'm not going back as a candidate in that.
Right. So when you talk about ideas now, and I mean, this is also personal. Why do you think that Nigerians have not been able to resonate with your ideas? I mean, the previous elections, you'll expect with the following that you seem to have with all of that. Why do you think Nigerians have not primarily been able to resonate
with
those ideas and your person, such that they will vote for you overwhelmingly, is what I mean?
So if anybody voted for me overwhelmingly in 2019, how would you know when they were performing a selection? It wasn't an election. I was arrested shortly after 2019 election. What was I arrested for? They claimed that I was trying to overturn the election and overthrow the government. If I wasn't relevant, if I was
those are two different things. You're talking about the election and then you
I'm telling you,
I think it's important to speak to the facts. This election was indeed conducted. Nigerians went out to vote for their candidate.
So you listen to this. We're just talking about election now. We have 46 days to election. You are reading on your platform this morning. The election will not hold. They know what they are doing, but trust me, they will conduct an election and they will produce a result that do not conform with the popular wish of the people. That's why they're confusing the people with, oh, we're going to postpone, we're not sure. You know, somebody in Borno is telling you that
it's fair to preempt
90% of Borno is available, is free. And you believe that? You're a journalist. It's not possible.
So this is about you projecting.
25% of Borno is not government.
For you to preempt in such manner and speak assuredly, saying, trust me, when you've not even, I mean, we're 46 days to this. I understand the opinion, perhaps the pain, but speaking preemptively, do you think it's fair?
We're analyzing what has come to us officially. Promise you, on my way here, I didn't even know that they had planned to postpone the elections because, we're busy with a lot of meetings, overnight. When I came here, I heard about it first from you. And that's the way it should be. Journalists should be the first source of information. But I'm telling you that this is a pattern. I've been around for 3 decades dealing with the same characters out of uniform and in uniform. So I know what they're up to.
If you have to preempt it or counter it, as my colleague Kadi has rightly noted, I think what is best is for you to provide a counter information that will speak to the facts.
No, I'm providing to you my own personal
suggestions
experience.
or conjecture.
For instance, he didn't let me finish that. Part of the reason I was abducted and detained. I was detained right around you here at the Changisha before I was flown to Abuja. The first thing they confronted me with was that I went to Dubai to collect $100 million from somebody. Is that a fact? No. When I told them I've never been to Dubai before, they just moved on. They got a judge, Taiwo, to detain me he's retired now, for 45 days without evidence of any, other than the fact that they said Sowore collected $100 million from Dubai. The judge didn't even ask them to provide my passport or to provide any evidence. He just threw me in jail for 45 days. When 45 days expired, they went to try to renew. He said no. And then they brought charges against me. The charges till today have not been proven. There's not even a judge hearing my case anymore. So when I'm speaking from my own personal experience that this is how they operate, you should believe me more than what they tell you.
Well, some will say they also have their personal experiences, which is what we do in journalism.
Yes.
Fair hearing.
Yes.
I'm sure there's balance and all of that. But let's project sort of into your potential administration. If you were to win this election, there are a lot of people that, of course, I mean, that's what politicians will say naturally. I know you don't like that tag, but you're a politician. You're involved in politics.
I'm glad you know I don't like it.
You're a presidential candidate, because I was preempting you there. There are a lot of people that see you as someone who will take drastic decisions if you were to be president. In fact, some had even propped you for a possible head of an anti-corruption agency, and maybe we'll get to that. So what are the kind of drastic decisions you would want to take for Nigeria? You've talked about the poverty figures, insecurity. So if you were to be president, what would be those maybe first 2 drastic decisions you'll take? And indeed, will they be drastic?
Yes. Well, they will be drastic in the sense that Nigeria is about to tip over if drastic actions are not taken. But let's break it down into 2 segments. One is foundational, because Nigeria has a foundational problem. And that's why people are asking for restructuring and all those, big buzzwords. But one of the drastic measures I'll take is to start towards creating a brand new constitution for Nigeria. That's foundational. And the constitution will take into consideration some of the drastic things I like to say. I like to cut down the cost of governance. One of the ways I want to do that is to get rid of one of the arms of one of the legislative arms in Nigeria. I'm not going to be able to do that without their support, but that will be a legislative agenda for me as the president of Nigeria. The second foundational issue is, like I said, have Nigerians come together and decide on the future of the country, just like South Africa did after the end of apartheid. The second part are those institutional drastic decisions that needs to be taken in the area of security, to make sure that you have the right people in place, directing the security agenda of our own government, and to aggressively pursue power, electricity. Within my first few days in office, I want to sign contracts to keep this country not in darkness, but in light, and that will be to generate some 20,000 megawatts of electricity using different kinds of mix of getting electricity, solar, tidal, whatever will give us electricity, including waste, I'll do it. And that is compulsory for me, because if you want to pull people out of poverty, you have to industrialize and produce. And if you want to produce, you must have power. There's no country in the world that has ever experienced an industrial revolution without electricity. We're deceiving ourselves. And then the rest with infrastructure, healthcare, education, agriculture, because we must be able to feed these 200 million people first and foremost. If you take that out of the 133 million, there's food, your poverty figures will reduce drastically, your GDP will go up, and you won't have all these fake figures that keeps us thinking that Nigeria is functioning when Nigeria is not.
There's also a very, critical problem that Nigeria has, which is the economy. And towards the end of this administration, we've seen the proposal of a redesigning of the Naira notes. And I've heard you say that, that is
it's a joke.
Is headed nowhere.
And it has headed nowhere.
As president, what would you do differently to tackle inflation, the value of the Naira, and other related issues?
So the value of the Naira or inflation, they're all tied to a fundamental economic shift, and the way my own economic agenda will shift is to look at the political economy that is driving our economic system. A structural adjustment program that has lasted and, become ineffective is not the kind of route I will go. What Nigeria has been doing since the 80s, since the military era, is to get the World Bank and the IMF to turn Nigeria into a junk yard where you come and dump your own products. They dump their own products. They force us, even at the WTO, to buy things we don't need, things we have, like flour. So I will shift that radically and ensure that the kind of economic agenda we have for Nigeria is the one that leads to proper production, there's empowerment of citizens by ensuring that you address a wide range or a spectrum of things that can empower the country. So, for instance, there is no reason why we should be importing Ankara from China. But the reason why it's cheaper to import from China is that the one in Kaduna will cost you more to produce 1 yard of Ankara because you don't have electricity. And if you're going to use diesel, your cost of production will go up. I've mentioned it and people hate to hear this, that our workers are being paid what I call slave wages, and we're going to pay people. If you want to make them productive, you have to incentivize them. There is nobody in the world, and I mean, not even cockroaches can live on 30,000 naira a month. You know, I know a number of cockroaches around me, and they eat a lot. So, and I'm saying this metaphorically, not to refer to cockroaches as humans, but so you must get your economy to that. You must get your education right, so that we'll produce the kind of workforce that can keep the country sustained in long term as a productive country and competitive country. We must have something we are putting in the international market from our side before we can be talking about the value of our naira.
Are you going to sever ties with the international financial institutions?
No, but they have to respect us. You know, for instance, if we are owing you loans and we can't explain how we got about it, we'll pause the loan. I've said it. 77 trillion naira of loans can be dubious, and we have to investigate and audit that. But most importantly is to say, look, you know, we want to grow our own economy first before we become a slave to loans that we have no reason to believe in. So they understand that because they've done that for Turkey, they've done that for Greece, they've done that for a lot of countries that have such economic problems. You can't be spending 80% of your revenue on loans and expect to make progress. It's not going to work. They understand this, but they need people who also understand their people and who understand how to fight for their own people, for them to respect that such an agreement is possible. But when they have bozos in government, they love it when they have in government the kind of leaders you have in Nigeria. They just tell them, come to Washington. People don't even ask. You pack yourself in an aircraft, the little money you have, you burn it and you come back. Nothing comes out of it. You want to govern the country, not to govern a space above your people. And that's what leadership means. And that's why Nigerians must be given that opportunity to choose the right leaders to govern the country. This is the problem we've had since independence, or even before independence. We keep promoting the failed ones. We say, you know, they have big rallies, they have big money, you know, they can do this and that. But at the end of the day, 4 years later, you're back, you're poorer than the last time you voted. And all the governments we've had, the last worst one is always better than the existing terrible one.
I like to ask that we also respect the personality of people, even though you might not be happy with them, but using that soft term.
You know that when it comes to respect, it's reciprocal. They also have to respect us.
It's okay, but you pride yourself as someone who speaks of ideas, literally, so I expect that, I mean, as you have always shown. But I'd like you to speak to this point, because I mean, literally, one of your selling points, really, is being able to resonate with young people. And I would recall when you started off, you had some support from young people. But right now, it would seem that young people, a lot of young people are tilting towards another candidate. And I wonder for you how you think that may have happened, if you think you may be lost in that area and maybe you don't have as much support from young people, because they make a huge chunk of the voting population. So how do you plan maybe to win young people to your side?
No, I don't know why people keep making up statistics that are not true. You understand? Because there's nothing scientifically proven that young people in any part of this country moved in direction of any particular candidate. All the candidates can prove that they have young people. If you want to prove using superficial means as to who has the most young people, you look at the rallies held by the oldest candidates. They have young people too, because they have the capability to hire young people.
But there's evidence on social media.
Social media does not
movement
so
that is
the way to look at it is to look at
a particular political party.
No, it's not correct.
And their candidate.
No, it's not correct.
So why do you say it's not correct?
Look at regionally in the country. Are you going to say that the northwest and the northeastern part of the country have young people tilted towards a particular candidate? Probably no. The southwest, all the young people have their own political positions, and they don't tilt towards the southwest. In history has never supported one particular candidate. Even when they had Obafemi Awolowo, they had opposition. So maybe you can say the southeast might have a preponderance of more young people tilted towards a candidate for reasons best known to politics.
So which region is tilting towards Sowore and the AAC?
Across the country.
What is the evidence?
The evidence is all over the place, but are you interested in the evidence?
But we're interested. That's why we're having.
You are interested in social media
evidence.
And I tell you, I work in the social media sector. Everything you see in the social media sector can be manipulated if you have enough money and you have enough ability to use tech to manipulate it. For instance, some of the candidates you're referring to, they're using boats, and you can manufacture boats if you go to Singapore, you go to China, you can get somebody to create bots for you to make it look like each time you post a particular content,
you get a
people
lot
are following
of
you.
activity around that. So,
You know, you can go on Instagram and pair up Instagram influencers, as they call them. They may not even believe or know your name.
okay, we're winding down, Mr. Sowore.
It's a lot more than that.
So
it's a combination.
we have, credible data, as it were, and it's data that you can hold on to.
Yeah.
First, INEC says with the recent registration, majority of them are young people.
That's
going
correct.
To get their PVCs. That's one.
But what you should ask INEC is that how many of those young people
we're winding down. We're winding down, and
yes.
that's a major point you
Yes.
raised. Also, the polls don't put you ahead, and it's expected.
Who are the people conducting polls?
I mean, there's the NOI polls.
ANAP is the campaign manager of Peter Obi now.
Well, it's okay for you not to feel that way because it doesn't favor
because I'm a
you.
because I'm a journalist
Then
too.
again, Mr.
You know,
Sowore, it must provide
are,
evidence to prove that ANAP is the campaign manager for a particular presidential
candidate. What's this guy's name? The bank guy. He can't deny it. I've challenged him several times.
We've seen the list of the PCC of the Labour Party.
But
so for
ANAP
you to say that without
what is the list of the
there.
PCC of the Labour Party?
So is his name there?
No.
But
when I
ANAP
say that these are things that I know,
past.
you can ask him to challenge. I can challenge him to a debate, and I can
it's okay.
provide
You have to
evidence.
present
He will never deny it.
But you've never presented counterfacts.
I keep forgetting his name.
Mr. Sowore, ANAP had conducted polls in the past when the presidential candidate of the Labour Party was a vice presidential candidate.
No.
It had conducted polls prior to that time as well.
Yes.
So why now do you claim that he's the campaign manager for the presidential candidate of the Labour Party?
We have to wind down now. It's always interesting.
He can't deny it.
Right, we have to wind down now. It's always interesting speaking to you, but we have to make this fact. And it's important for you, if you have counterfact, to put it out there for Nigerians.
No, this counterfact, it's also up to you to listen to counterfacts.
We've just listened. You've not given us any document.
No, I've just given you one, and I've asked you to contact he comes to your studio.
We have to run now. 46 days to the election, so it looks like we'll be having Mr. Omoyele as the presidential candidate. Publisher of Sahara reporters. Thank you.